In the vast emptiness between stars where even light takes years to whisper across the void, humanity discovered something that would change everything. Not through brilliant scientific breakthrough or alien contact. What happens when the universe's most advanced technology, silent for millennia, suddenly recognizes something it was always meant to serve? What happens when that recognition comes not from generals or scientists, but from the simple joy of human creativity and wonder? This is the story of how toys became keys, how imagination became fuel, and how humanity's greatest strength was never our weapons or our knowledge, but our ability to find magic in the mundane and turn play into power that could reshape the galaxy itself. Captain Sarah Chen had seen enough derelict ships to know when something was different. The massive vessel floating in the debris field of the Kepler 442 system wasn't broadcasting distress signals, wasn't leaking atmosphere, and wasn't showing any signs of the usual catastrophic damage that left ships drifting in space. It simply hung there in the void like a sleeping giant, its hull gleaming with an unfamiliar metallic sheen that seemed to drink in starlight rather than reflect it. "How long has it been here?" she asked her science officer, Lieutenant Commander James Park, as they approached in their exploration vessel, the UES Meridian. Park consulted his readings, frowning at the displays. "That's the strange part, Captain. The debris field around it is ancient, maybe 10,000 years old. But this ship," he paused, running the scans again. "The materials show no degradation. No cosmic ray damage, no micrometeorite impacts. It's like it was placed here yesterday." Quote, "Through the viewports, the alien vessel grew larger as they approached. It was enormous, easily 5 times the length of their own ship, with graceful curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal frozen in time. Strange geometric patterns covered its hull, not carved or painted, but somehow integral to the material itself. The pattern seemed to shift slightly when viewed from different angles, creating an almost hypnotic effect." "Any response to our hails?" Chen asked. "Nothing, Captain. No energy signatures either." "Whatever this thing is, it's completely powered down." Chen's 8-year-old daughter Maya pressed her face against the viewport in the observation lounge, her breath fogging the clear aluminum. She'd been reluctantly brought along on this mission when the colony ship they'd been passengers on suffered a critical life support failure. The Meridian had been the nearest vessel, and despite regulations about children on exploration missions, leaving Maya behind hadn't been an option. "It's pretty," Maya whispered, watching the alien ship grow larger. In her arms, she clutched a worn stuffed rabbit named Mr. Nip. Hopscotch, and her backpack bulged with the collection of toys that had survived their hurried evacuation. The docking procedure took 3 hours. The alien ship had what appeared to be docking ports, but they were unlike anything in human databases. Chief Engineer Rodriguez worked with the ship's fabrication systems to create compatible coupling mechanisms, all while wearing full environmental suits and taking every precaution. "Atmosphere inside is breathable," Rodriguez reported as the airlocks finally sealed. "Oxygen-nitrogen mix actually slightly richer than Earth standard. Temperature is a comfortable 21 degrees Celsius. But Captain," his voice carried a note of confusion, "the environmental systems aren't running. There's no power signature for life support, no air recyclers, nothing. Yet somehow the atmosphere is perfect." Chen assembled a small exploration team, herself, Park, Rodriguez, and 2 security specialists. Maya would remain on the Meridian under the watchful eye of Dr. Resty, Sarah Kim, the ship's medical officer, and xenobiologist. Sarah Kim's interior defied explanation. The corridors were vast and elegant, with walls that curved organically and seemed to glow with their own soft light despite showing no energy source. The architecture felt both ancient and timeless, as if it had been grown rather than built. Strange alcoves lined the walls, filled with crystalline structures that might have been art, technology, or both. "The hull is over 1 meter thick," Rodriguez reported, running his scanner along the walls. "But these materials, I'm getting readings I don't understand. It's like the metal exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously." They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing strangely in the vast corridors. Every room they entered was empty but pristine, as if the crew had simply vanished moments before their arrival. There were chambers that might have been living quarters, though the furnishings were odd geometric shapes that defied easy categorization. Other rooms contained what looked like control stations, but with no visible buttons, switches, or displays. "Captain," Park called from what appeared to be the ship's central hub, "you need to see this." The chamber he'd found was enormous, its ceiling disappearing into shadows above. In the center stood a structure that took Chen's breath away, a crystalline matrix the size of a small building, composed of thousands of interconnected geometric shapes that seemed to pulse with dormant energy. The crystals were perfectly clear like diamonds, but they contained depths that seemed to go on forever. "It's beautiful," Park whispered. "Does it need to be as simply different to ever send them?" "The engine," Rodriguez breathed, his scanners going wild. "This has to be their faster-than-light drive. But the power requirements." He shook his head. "Captain, this thing could theoretically provide enough energy to move a planet, maybe a solar system." Chen approached the crystalline structure carefully. As she drew closer, she noticed something strange. Faint patterns of light seemed to dance deep within the crystals, too subtle to see unless you looked directly at them. The patterns reminded her of something, but she couldn't place what. "No external power sources," Rodriguez continued, circling the engine. "No fuel lines, no reaction chambers, no plasma conduits. How does it work?" They spent hours documenting the engine chamber and the rest of the ship. Every room held wonders that challenged their understanding of physics and engineering. There were chambers filled with devices that might have been computers, but they showed no screens or interfaces. Other rooms contained what looked like gardens, though they held no soil or plants, just more of the strange crystalline structures arranged in patterns that somehow suggested growing things. As the day progressed, Chen found herself drawn back to the engine chamber again and again. There was something about the crystalline matrix that called to her, though she couldn't explain why. The dancing lights within the crystals seemed to respond to her presence, growing slightly brighter when she approached, dimming when she moved away. "Captain," Park's voice crackled over the comm, "Dr. Kim is requesting permission to bring Maya aboard. She says the girl is inconsolable. Apparently, she's convinced we're going to get lost in here." Chen sighed. Children and space exploration didn't mix well, but Maya had been through enough trauma already. "Tell her she can come aboard, but she stays with Dr. Kim at all times. And she brings her emergency beacon." 20 minutes later, Maya bounded into the ship with the enthusiasm only children could manage. Kim followed close behind, looking apologetic. "She was crying, Captain. Said she had to come help us find our way home." Maya's eyes went wide as she took in the alien architecture. "It's like a fairy tale castle," she whispered, clutching Mr. Hopscotch tighter. "Is it magic?" "It's very advanced technology," Chen explained patiently. "The people who built this ship were probably much more advanced than we are." "Where did they go?" Maya asked, the question that had been bothering all of them. "We don't know, sweetheart. Maybe they went home." Maya nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Can I explore too?" Against her better judgment, Chen found herself nodding. "Stay with Dr. Kim and don't touch anything." The group made their way to the engine chamber, where Rodriguez was still taking readings. Maya gasped when she saw the crystalline matrix, her eyes reflecting the subtle lights dancing within the crystals. "It's sleeping," she announced with the certainty only children possessed. "Sleeping?" Park asked, amused. "Hopscotch when I put him down for his nap," Maya explained seriously. "It's dreaming pretty dreams, see?" She pointed at the dancing lights, "But it's waiting for someone to wake it up." Rodriguez chuckled. "Out of the mouths of babes." Though actually, that's not a bad description. The engine is definitely in some kind of standby mode. Maya wandered around the chamber, seemingly unafraid of the massive alien technology. She chatted quietly to Mr. Hopscotch, pointing out interesting features as if giving the stuffed rabbit a tour. "Doctor." Kim followed her closely, but the child showed no inclination to touch anything dangerous. It was when Maya reached the far side of the engine chamber that something extraordinary happened. As she walked past a section of the crystalline matrix, the lights within the crystals suddenly flared brighter. Not just a little brighter, they blazed like tiny stars, sending cascades of rainbow light throughout the chamber. Everyone froze. "Maya, step back slowly," Chen ordered, her hand moving to her sidearm. But Maya wasn't moving backward. She was staring up at the crystals with wonder, and Mr. Hopscotch was glowing. Actually glowing, as if the stuffed rabbit were made of the same crystal as the engine. "Captain," Rodriguez's voice was tight with amazement. "I'm reading massive energy spikes throughout the ship. Something is waking up." The crystalline engine pulsed once, twice, and then settled into a steady, gentle glow. Throughout the ship, lights began to activate. Not harsh artificial illumination, but the same soft, organic glow that had been present but dormant in the walls and corridors. Maya giggled and hugged Mr. Seso. "Hopscotch closer. I told you it was sleeping. I think it likes my rabbit." Park's scanner was beeping frantically. "Captain, the ship's systems are coming online. All of them. Life support, navigation, what looks like a defensive grid, everything." Chen's mind raced. They had inadvertently activated an alien vessel of unknown capabilities. This could be first contact, or it could be a disaster waiting to happen. "Everyone back to the Meridian." Do. Now, shh. "Wait," Maya said, tugging on Dr. Kim's hand. "It's not scary. Look." The child pointed to the crystalline matrix where the lights had formed patterns, not random dancing, but organized, purposeful designs. The patterns reminded Chen of something, and suddenly she realized what it was. They looked like the constellation maps Maya loved to study. The star charts the girl used to navigate her imaginary adventures with Mr. Hopscotch. "Maya," Chen said carefully, "has Mr. Hopscotch always glowed like that?" Maya looked down at the stuffed rabbit as if noticing its luminescence for the first time. "Oh, that's new. But he feels the same." She squeezed the rabbit and smiled. "Maybe the ship wants to play." Before anyone could stop her, Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out a handful of toys, small action figures, a kaleidoscope, a set of magnetic building blocks, and a small stuffed dragon that had seen better days. As soon as the toys left her backpack, they began to glow with the same gentle light as Mr. Hopscotch. The engine's response was immediate and overwhelming. The crystalline matrix blazed with light, and throughout the chamber, smaller crystal formations began rising from the floor. Each new crystal seemed to resonate with one of Maya's toys, creating a complex harmony of light and sound that was hauntingly beautiful. "Incredible," Dr. Kim breathed. "It's like the ship is trying to communicate through play. Captain, the power output from this engine is now measurable. Not much, barely enough to run basic systems, but it's definitely active. And the energy signature?" He paused, running the scan again. "I've never seen anything like it. It's almost organic." Chen watched her daughter play with toys that now seemed to be made of living light, while an alien engine that had been dormant for millennia hummed to life around them. Part of her knew they should evacuate immediately. But another part, the part that remembered what it was like to be 8 years old and believe in magic, wondered if they had stumbled onto something more important than anyone could have imagined. "Maya," she said gently, "how does it feel? The ship, I mean." Maya considered the question with the seriousness she reserved for important matters. "Lonely," she said finally. "It's been waiting for a really long time for someone to play with, but it's happy now." She looked up at the dancing lights in the crystalline matrix. "I think it wants to show us something." As if responding to her words, the patterns in the crystals shifted and reformed. What emerged was unmistakably a star map, but not of any region of space that Chen recognized. The stars were arranged in perfect geometric patterns, connected by lines of light that pulsed gently. "That's not our galaxy," Park said quietly. "The structure is all wrong. Too organized, too purposeful." Maya nodded sagely. "It's where the builders went. They're waiting for someone to come play with them, too." She hugged Mr. Hopscotch and smiled up at the adults. "The ship wants to take us there." but only if we want to go. Chen felt the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. They had discovered technology that could revolutionize human space travel, possibly even human civilization. But it had awakened not for their scientists or engineers, but for a little girl with a stuffed rabbit and a backpack full of toys. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "if this engine is what I think it is, it could get us home in hours instead of months, maybe even let us explore regions of space we've only dreamed of reaching." Chen looked at Maya, who was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, arranging her toys in patterns that somehow seemed to harmonize with the engine's crystalline structures. The little girl looked happier than she had since their evacuation from the colony ship. "Can you turn it off?" Chen asked Rodriguez. The engineer shrugged. "I don't know how it was turned on, Captain. All I know is that it responds to—" He gestured helplessly at Maya and her toys. Maya looked up from her play. "It won't hurt anyone," she said with absolute confidence. "The builders were nice. They left their ship here as a present for whoever found it. Like a really big toy that can take you anywhere you want to go." Chen made her decision. "We proceed carefully. Full documentation of everything." And Maya, she knelt down to look her daughter in the eyes. "This ship is responding to you. That makes you the most important person on this mission. Do you understand?" Maya nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Does that mean I get to be captain, despite everything?" Chen found herself smiling. "Co-captain, but I'm still in charge of the grown-up stuff." "Okay, Maya," agreed. "I'll handle the fun stuff." As the alien engine hummed quietly around them, its crystalline structure pulsing in rhythm with the little girl's imagination, Chen couldn't help but wonder if perhaps the fun stuff was exactly what humanity had been missing in their exploration of the stars. Over the following days, the alien vessel gradually revealed its secrets, but only to Maya. While the adult crew members ran every scan and analysis they could devise, the ship remained largely passive to their efforts. For Maya, however, it was like the galaxy's most elaborate playground had awakened just for her. The ship's corridors began changing in subtle ways. Walls that had been smooth and featureless suddenly displayed soft, glowing patterns that seemed to respond to Maya's moods. When she was excited, they pulsed with warm golden light. When she was thoughtful, they shifted to gentle blues and purples. The patterns weren't random. They formed landscapes, starfields, and abstract designs that reminded everyone who saw them of children's drawings brought to life. "It's learning from her," Dr. Kim observed as she watched Maya skip down one of the main corridors, her toys floating in a gentle orbit around her. Yes, floating. That particular phenomenon had started on the second day, much to Rodriguez's bafflement. "The gravitational fields in her vicinity are fluctuating," the engineer reported to Chen. "Not dangerously. It's like the ship is creating localized adjustments to make her toys weightless. But, Captain, I can't even begin to explain the technology required to do that." Chen nodded, watching her daughter through the observation window. Maya was currently engaged in what appeared to be a conversation with the ship itself, chattering away while her toys performed an elaborate dance around her. Occasionally, new crystalline structures would emerge from the walls or floor, and Maya would examine them with the serious attention of a scientist before declaring them pretty or friendly or shy. "Any progress on the language issue?" Chen asked Park, who had been attempting to decode what appeared to be writing systems throughout the ship. "Some," Park replied, pulling up his latest analysis. "The symbols seem to change based on who's looking at them. When I examine them, they remain static. When Maya looks at them, he shook his head. They become animated. Pictures, essentially. She says they're telling stories. Stories about what? The builders, mostly. According to Maya, they were called the Weavers, and they traveled throughout the galaxy, creating what she calls play spaces, areas where different species could come together and share their forms of creativity and joy. This ship was one of their mobile workshops." Jen frowned. "Workshops for what?" "For weaving what Maya calls happy places between the stars. I think she means they were creating some kind of network of connected spaces designed to promote peaceful interaction between civilizations." Dr. Kim joined the conversation, her expression troubled. "Captain, I've been monitoring Maya's vital signs since we boarded this ship. Her brain activity is unusual. She's showing patterns I've never seen before, enhanced creativity centers, heightened spatial reasoning, and something that almost looks like... She paused, well, like telepathic activity, though that's impossible. Is she in danger? I don't think so. If anything, she seems more healthy and energetic than before, but she's definitely changing. Or maybe the ship is helping her access capabilities that were already there. As if summoned by their conversation, Maya came bounding into the observation room, her face glowing with excitement. Mr. Hopscotch rode on her shoulder like a luminescent parrot, while her other toys arranged themselves in a neat formation behind her. Mommy, the ship wants to show us something really cool, Maya announced. It's in the big room with all the sleepy crystals. What kind of something, sweetheart? A surprise, but a good surprise. The ship says it's been waiting a really long time to show someone, but it needed to make sure they were ready first. Hark exchanged glances with Chen. Ready for what? Maya tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. To understand that playing isn't just for kids. The Weavers knew that playing is how you learn about other people and make friends and solve problems, and she paused, struggling with concepts too large for her vocabulary. And how you make the universe a happier place. Maya had insisted that everyone needed to see this, and Chen had long since learned that arguing with her daughter while aboard this ship was pointless. The alien vessel seemed to have adopted Maya as its captain, co-captain status notwithstanding. The crystalline matrix had grown since their first visit. What had once been a large but contained structure now filled nearly half the chamber, its faceted surfaces pulsing with patterns of light that seemed to tell wordless stories. Maya approached it without fear, her toys automatically arranging themselves around her in what had become their standard formation. Okay, ship, Maya said, addressing the air as if speaking to an old friend. Show them the memory room. The response was immediate and breathtaking. The crystals blazed with light, and suddenly the chamber was filled with holographic images, but not flat projections. These were three-dimensional spaces that seemed to exist within and around the crystalline structure, creating the sensation of standing inside a vast, impossible room. The first scene showed a planet unlike any they had ever seen. Cities that looked like they had been grown rather than built sprawled across continents, their architecture flowing and organic. But what captured everyone's attention were the beings moving through those cities, dozens of different species, all interacting peacefully in what appeared to be massive, joyful celebrations. The Weavers, Maya explained proudly. They're the tall, shiny ones. They like to bring different people together to play games and make art and learn from each other. The tall, shiny ones were indeed impressive, humanoid beings that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the ship's engine, but alive and graceful in their movements. They moved among the other species with obvious care and affection, facilitating interactions that looked part diplomacy, part festival, and part elaborate game. The scene shifted, showing the construction of massive structures in space. Not ships, but something far more ambitious. Entire artificial worlds connected by streams of light, forming networks that spanned star systems. Play spaces, Maya said, her voice filled with wonder even though she had obviously seen this before. Places where anyone could come to learn and share and have fun together. The Weavers built hundreds of them. Rodriguez was frantically taking readings, his instruments overloading from the sheer amount of information being presented. Captain, the energy required to create these holographic environments would drain our ship's entire power core in seconds. But this ship is barely putting out a trickle of power. Where is all this energy coming from? The next scene provided an answer that left everyone speechless. The holographic display showed the interior of what appeared to be another ship like the one they were aboard, but this one was filled with beings from a dozen different species. They were engaged in activities that looked like elaborate games, but as the crew watched, they realized these weren't just games. They were collaborative problem-solving exercises on a cosmic scale. They're terraforming a planet, Park breathed, using play as a form of cooperative engineering. Maya nodded excitedly. The Weavers figured out that when people play together, they think better and come up with ideas nobody could think of alone. So they made their ships into big toys that help people solve really hard problems by having fun. The implications were staggering. These beings had apparently developed a technology that harnessed collaborative creativity as an energy source, turning play and cooperation into literal fuel for impossible achievements. But then the images began to change, showing scenes that were darker and more troubling. The play spaces were emptying, the networks of light between worlds flickering and dying. The Weavers themselves seemed to be fading, their crystalline forms becoming translucent and distant. "What happened to them?" Dr. Kim asked softly. Maya's expression grew sad. "They got too spread out. There were so many worlds to help and so many people who needed to learn how to play together that the Weavers forgot to take care of themselves. They used up all their energy trying to help everyone else." The final scene showed a single ship, the very ship they were aboard, drifting alone through space. Inside, a small group of Weavers worked frantically to encode something into the crystalline matrix. Their forms were barely visible now. More light than substance. They put their memories and their knowledge and their love, I guess, into the ship's heart, Maya explained, pointing to the engine. They hoped that someday someone would find it who could understand what they were trying to do, someone who remembered how to play. The holographic display faded, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Maya walked up to the crystalline matrix and placed her small hand against its surface. The entire structure pulsed once with warm golden light. "They're not really gone," she said quietly. "They're sleeping in the crystal dreams, waiting for someone to help them wake up. But they can't wake up alone. They need," she struggled to find the words, "they need people to play with. Lots of people. Different kinds of people who can all play together and make the dream energy they need to come back." Chen knelt down beside her daughter. "Maya, are you saying this ship needs more than just us to fully activate? It's like a really big game that needs lots of players. The more people who understand how to play together, the stronger the ship gets. And if enough people learn to play the Weaver way," she smiled, expression of pure joy and possibility, "we could bring them back and rebuild all the play spaces and help everyone in the galaxy be friends." "Captain, if what we're seeing here is accurate, this isn't just a faster-than-light engine. It's a technology that could revolutionize how our species approaches cooperation, problem-solving, even diplomacy. But it requires something we're not very good at, which is playing well with others." Over the next several hours, Maya demonstrated more of the ship's capabilities. She showed them how the crystalline structures could be reconfigured through what she called imagination games, mental exercises that were part meditation, part creative visualization, and part pure play. When she engaged in these games, the ship systems responded by optimizing themselves, becoming more efficient and more powerful. "It's learning from her," Dr. Kim observed. "Not just her actions, but her thought patterns, her emotional states, even her dreams. The ship is using her mind as a template for understanding human creativity." "But why her?" Park asked. "Why not us?" Maya overheard the question and answered with the matter-of-fact honesty of childhood. "Because grown-ups forget how to play for real. You think playing is just something kids do when they're not doing important stuff. But playing is the important stuff. It's how you figure out what's possible." She picked up her kaleidoscope and held it up to the light streaming from the crystals. The patterns visible through the viewer were impossibly complex, not just colored glass, but what appeared to be miniature star systems in constant, beautiful motion. The Weavers knew that every time someone plays, really plays, not just following rules but making up new possibilities, they're creating energy that can change things, not just in their head, but for real. Maya lowered the kaleidoscope and looked at the adults seriously. That's what faster than light really is. It's not about going fast. It's about imagining yourself somewhere else so clearly that the universe helps you get there. Chen felt a chill run down her spine as the implications hit her. "Maya, are you saying this ship is powered by imagination?" "Not just imagination. Happy imagination. When people imagine good things together and play games where everyone wins and think about making the universe more fun for everyone, that's when the Weaver engines work best. Rodriguez was shaking his head in amazement. It's brilliant. They didn't just solve faster-than-light travel, they solved the fundamental problem of interspecies cooperation. If your technology only works when people are genuinely working together toward mutual benefit, then war becomes literally impossible, Chen finished. You can't use Weaver technology for conquest or destruction because it won't function for those purposes. Exactly. That's why the ship likes me. Kids don't usually want to hurt people or take their stuff. We just want to play and explore and make friends. Her expression grew more serious. But the ship is still mostly asleep because I'm just one kid. To really wake it up and bring the Weavers back, we need lots of people who remember how to play together. As if to demonstrate her point, Maya began one of her imagination games. She sat cross-legged in front of the crystalline matrix and closed her eyes, holding Mr. Hopscotch in her lap. Her other toys arranged themselves in a circle around her, glowing softly. As she played out some elaborate scenario in her mind, the ship's systems began to hum with increased energy. The effect was subtle, but measurable. Life support became more efficient, the artificial gravity felt more stable, even the lights seemed warmer and more pleasant. The ship was literally becoming more hospitable as Maya played. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "I'm reading power fluctuations throughout the ship. Nothing dangerous, but it's like the entire vessel is becoming more alive." Chen watched her daughter play her strange games with alien technology that responded to joy and creativity as if they were fundamental forces of physics. Perhaps they were. Perhaps the Weavers had discovered something about the nature of consciousness and cooperation that humanity was only beginning to understand. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. Park looked surprised. "Captain, if Maya is right, if this technology only reaches its full potential with widespread cooperation and play, then we need to share this discovery, not just with scientists and engineers, but with everyone. Children especially." Maya opened her eyes and smiled at her mother. "Can we invite other kids to play on the ship?" Chen smiled back. "As many as want to come, sweetheart. I have a feeling this ship is going to need a very large crew." As the Meridian prepared to return to human space with their incredible cargo, none of them could have predicted what would happen when word of the discovery reached Earth. They had found more than just an alien ship or even faster-than-light technology. They had found a mirror that reflected humanity's greatest strength back at them: the ability to play, to imagine, to cooperate in the pursuit of joy. The Weavers had been waiting for 10,000 years for someone to rediscover the secret they had learned. That the most powerful force in the universe wasn't gravity or nuclear fusion or dark energy. It was the simple act of beings choosing to play together, to imagine better worlds, and to work toward making those imagined worlds real. The journey back to Earth took 18 days instead of the projected 4 months. As the Weaver ship learned from Maya's games and grew stronger, its engines began to bend space-time in ways that Rodriguez's instruments could barely measure. They weren't traveling faster than light so much as convincing the universe that the distance between 2 points was much smaller than physics suggested. "It's like the ship is playing a game with reality," Maya explained as she sat in what had become her favorite spot, a small alcove in the engine chamber where the crystalline formations created a natural chair perfectly sized for an 8-year-old. "It imagines that we're already where we want to go, and the universe says, 'Okay, that sounds fun,' and helps us get there." The transformation of the ship during their journey was remarkable. Rooms that had been empty when they first boarded began filling with what Maya called dream furniture, objects that seemed to grow from the crystalline formations in response to the crew's needs and subconscious desires. Chen's quarters sprouted a desk that adjusted itself perfectly to her height and work style. Dr. Kim found herself with a medical bay that anticipated her needs before she consciously formed them. Rodriguez discovered workshop spaces filled with tools he had never seen but somehow knew how to use. But the most significant changes happened in the common areas. The ship created what appeared to be recreational spaces, gardens made of living light, libraries where books wrote themselves based on the reader's interests, and vast chambers that could reconfigure themselves into any environment the occupants could imagine. Maya spent hours in these spaces, and each time she played, the ship learned something new about human nature. "She's teaching it to be human, Dr. Gay," Kim observed as they watched Maya and Mr. Hopscotch have an elaborate tea party with creatures made of flowing light that the ship had created as playmates. Not just human in form, but human in spirit. The ship is learning about our emotions, our humor, our capacity for wonder. Park, who had been studying the ship's data systems, looked up from his work. "It's more than that. I've been analyzing the ship's learning patterns, and it's not just absorbing information about humans. It's becoming genuinely fond of us. The ship is developing what I can only describe as affection for our species." Chen frowned. "Affection? Look at how it responds to Maya's moods. When she's happy, the entire ship seems brighter. When she's tired, it dims the lights automatically and makes the floors softer. When she's scared, and that happened once during a minor meteor shower, the ship generated protective barriers and comforting sounds without being asked. It's not just following programming. It's caring for her." The implications were staggering. They weren't just returning to Earth with advanced technology, they were bringing home a living entity that had formed an emotional bond with humanity through the play and imagination of one small girl. As they entered Earth's solar system, the ship's behavior became even more remarkable. Long-range sensors began detecting human communication signals, and the ship started responding to them with what could only be described as curiosity. Radio waves, television broadcasts, and internet transmissions were analyzed not for their informational content, but for their emotional resonance. "It's listening to our music," Park reported, watching data streams flow across his screens. "And our stories. It seems particularly interested in children's programming and educational content." Maya giggled from her alcove. "It likes the funny cartoons. And it wants to understand why people tell stories about made-up places and people." "What did you tell it?" Chen asked. "That imagining things is how we practice being better," Maya replied seriously. "When we tell stories about heroes and adventures and people learning to be kind, we're teaching ourselves how to be those things too." The ship thinks that's really smart. Earth Control had been monitoring their approach for the past 3 days, ever since the Meridian had appeared on long-range sensors moving at impossible speeds. The communication exchanges had been tense, with Earth demanding explanations for their early return and the massive energy signature accompanying them. Chen had provided basic information, alien vessel, advanced technology, peaceful contact, but she had deliberately avoided mentioning the ship's unique activation requirements. "IUS Meridian, this is Earth Control. You are directed to proceed to Lunar Station 7 for quarantine and debriefing. The alien vessel will be taken into custody for study by the Colonial Science Directorate." Chen exchanged glances with her crew. This was the moment they had all been dreading. "Earth Control, be advised that the alien vessel requires specialized handling. Standard containment procedures may not be appropriate. Proceed to quarantine as directed. Failure to comply will result in military intervention." Maya looked up from her play, her expression troubled. "Mommy, the ship is getting scared. It doesn't want to be locked up and poked at by people who don't understand playing." Chen could feel the ship's emotional state through subtle changes in the lighting and air circulation. The warm, welcoming atmosphere that had developed during their journey was giving way to something cooler and more distant. "Maya, can you explain to the ship that not everyone on Earth will be unfriendly? That there are people who will want to learn and play?" Maya nodded and closed her eyes, entering into one of her silent conversations with the ship. After several minutes, she opened them and smiled. "The ship understands, but it wants to meet the nice people first before it talks to the scary government people." Chen made a decision that would change everything. "Earth Control, we're requesting permission to land at the New Geneva spaceport. We have passengers who need immediate medical attention." It wasn't entirely untrue. Extended exposure to alien technology probably did warrant medical monitoring. "Negative, Meridian. You will proceed to quarantine." "Earth Control, I'm declaring a medical emergency under Article 7 of the Colonial Navigation Code. We are making an emergency landing at the nearest civilian facility." The response was immediate and angry, but Chen had bought them time. The Weaver ship, responding to Maya's guidance and its own growing understanding of human politics, began implementing what it had learned from human entertainment broadcasts about daring rescues and clever escapes. The ship didn't become invisible. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it convinced Earth's sensor networks that it was actually 3 different objects in 3 different locations, all moving at reasonable speeds and exhibiting normal energy signatures. Meanwhile, the real ship slipped through Earth's defensive perimeter like a whisper, its engines running on what Maya called hide-and-seek mode. New Geneva Spaceport was primarily a civilian facility, handling commercial traffic and private vessels. Chen had chosen it specifically because it was managed by the European Space Consortium, which had a reputation for scientific cooperation rather than military control. As they approached the landing pad, the ship automatically configured itself to appear less threatening, shifting its crystalline surfaces to a warmer, more organic appearance. The landing drew immediate attention. Even in its disguised state, the Weaver ship was clearly of non-human origin. Within hours, New Geneva was surrounded by news crews, scientists, government officials, and thousands of curious civilians. Chen faced a choice that would determine the future of human contact with Weaver technology. She could follow standard first contact protocols, turning the ship over to authorities for classified study. Or she could trust Maya's instincts about the ship's needs and humanity's potential for cooperative play. She chose Maya. The first group to board the ship consisted of Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of New Geneva's Xenobiology Department, Professor James Okafor, a specialist in alien psychology, and Dr. Sarah Martinez, a child psychologist who Chen had specifically requested. They were accompanied by a small group of graduate students and, at Maya's insistence, several children from the local community. "The ship wants to meet kids from Earth," Maya had explained. "It needs to understand how other human children play so it can learn more about our whole species." 8-year-old Antoine from France took one look at the ship's responsive walls and declared it the best video game ever. 12-year-old Kaiko from Japan spent 20 minutes in animated conversation with one of the ship's light constructs. 7-year-old Marcus from Nigeria discovered that the ship could create holographic animals that responded to his imagination, and within an hour he was directing an elaborate safari adventure through the corridors. But it was the adults' reactions that truly mattered. Dr. Vasquez approached the ship's technology with scientific rigor but also with genuine wonder. When Maya showed her how the crystalline formations could be reconfigured through imaginative play, Vasquez didn't dismiss it as impossible. She asked Maya to teach her the techniques. Professor Okafor, meanwhile, was fascinated by the ship's emotional responses. "It's not just intelligent," he told Chen, "it's empathetic. It reads the emotional states of everyone aboard and tries to respond in ways that will make them more comfortable and happy." Dr. Martinez observed the interaction between Maya and the ship with professional interest. "Captain Chen, your daughter isn't just operating this technology, she's formed a genuine friendship with it. The ship doesn't just respond to her commands, it responds to her feelings, her needs, even her unspoken concerns." As word spread about the children playing with alien technology, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic or fear, the dominant public reaction was fascination and hope. Social media filled with videos of the visiting children demonstrating the ship's capabilities, their joy and wonder infectious even through electronic screens. Scientists began arriving from around the world, but so did teachers, artists, child development specialists, and ordinary parents who wanted to understand what their children were experiencing. The ship welcomed them all, creating spaces for each new visitor that reflected their interests and expertise. Dr. Sarah Kim made a discovery that changed everything when she began studying the brain activity of children and adults who had spent time aboard the ship. "Captain, look at these neural patterns. The children who have played with the ship's systems are showing enhanced connectivity between brain regions associated with creativity, problem-solving, and empathy. But it's not permanent. The changes fade after they leave the ship. What does that mean? I think the ship is temporarily enhancing human cognitive abilities, but only in ways that promote cooperation and creative thinking. It's like it's showing us what we could become if we learn to use our full potential. Rodriguez had been studying the ship's technical systems and came to a similar conclusion from an engineering perspective. Captain, this ship could solve most of humanity's technological challenges in a matter of years, but it won't share its full capabilities with just anyone. It only responds fully to people who approach it with genuine curiosity, empathy, and willingness to collaborate. Maya, overhearing the conversation, nodded sagely. The ship doesn't trust people who want to use it to hurt other people or make themselves more important than everyone else. But it really likes people who want to use it to help everyone have more fun and learn cool things. Over the following weeks, New Geneva became the site of the most unique first contact event in human history. Instead of government officials negotiating with alien ambassadors, it was children teaching alien technology how to play, and adult experts learning that their most sophisticated theories were being revolutionized by the games of 8-year-olds. The ship created educational spaces where human knowledge merged with Weaver wisdom. Scientists found themselves working alongside children to solve problems that had puzzled humanity for generations. Engineers discovered that the ship's most advanced systems could only be operated by teams that included people of different ages, backgrounds, and ways of thinking. Maya remained at the center of it all, the bridge between human imagination and alien technology. She translated the ship's responses for adults who had forgotten how to hear them and helped other children overcome their initial fear of something so strange and powerful. The ship is learning so much, Maya told her mother as they watched a group of researchers and kindergartners successfully reconfigure one of the ship's manufacturing systems. It's starting to understand that humans are really good at playing together when we remember how, and it wants to help us remember more often. Chen watched as the ship created a holographic playground where children from a dozen different countries played together while their parents, scientists, teachers, and government officials collaborated on research that was advancing human understanding at an unprecedented pace. Maya, what happens next? The ship can't stay hidden at New Geneva forever. Maya smiled, her eyes reflecting the warm light of the crystalline formations around them. The ship doesn't want to hide anymore. It wants to teach all the humans how to play the games that can take us to the stars. But first, we need to prove that we can play nicely with each other. As if responding to her words, the ship's systems pulsed with gentle light. Throughout its corridors, holographic displays showed images of Earth from space, not as individual countries or continents, but as a single beautiful world where humans were learning to work and play together in ways that would have made the Weavers proud. The real test was just beginning. The crisis began 3 months after the Weaver ship's arrival at New Geneva. Earth's major governments, initially content to observe from a distance while scientists studied the alien technology, grew increasingly uncomfortable with the ship's refusal to respond to military personnel or government officials. The technology that could revolutionize human civilization was being operated by children and overseen by academics, with no centralized control or regulation. This is unacceptable, General Harrison Martinez declared during an emergency session of the United Earth Council. We're talking about weapons technology beyond our current understanding, and it's being treated like a playground. Chen, who had been called to testify, shook her head. General, you're missing the fundamental point. There's to be your gut, your common people. The ship's systems literally cannot be used for harmful purposes. We've tried to run weapon simulations, and the ship simply refuses to participate. Then you haven't tried hard enough, Martinez replied coldly. Every technology can be weaponized. It's just a matter of finding the right approach. Dr. G. Echo Chair Vasquez, now serving as the head of the international research team, stood up. General, with respect, you're approaching this with a fundamentally flawed assumption. The Weaver technology doesn't work despite our capacity for cooperation. It works because of it. The more we try to use it for competitive or aggressive purposes, the less responsive it becomes. That's impossible. Technology is neutral. It responds to whoever controls it. Maya, who had been quietly coloring in the corner of the hearing room, looked up from her drawing. The ship isn't just technology, it's more like a friend. and friends don't help you hurt other friends. The general's expression hardened. Captain Chen, I'm ordering you to remove the child from these proceedings. This is a matter of planetary security. Shen felt the subtle shift in the room's atmosphere that she had learned to associate with the ship's emotional responses. Even at a distance of several kilometers, the Weaver vessel was somehow aware of Maya's distress. Through the windows of the council chamber, she could see the lights of New Geneva flickering in patterns that matched her daughter's nervous fidgeting. General, Chen said carefully, Maya isn't just a child who happens to be here. She's the primary interface between the ship and our species. Removing her from these discussions would be like trying to negotiate a trade agreement without any translators. Then we'll find other interfaces. There must be adults who can operate the technology. Dr. Martinez, the child psychologist, cleared her throat. General, we've tested hundreds of adult volunteers. While many can achieve basic interaction with the ship's systems, none have been able to access more than a fraction of its capabilities. The ship responds most fully to individuals who approach it with what we've termed authentic playfulness, a mindset that's unfortunately rare in adults. Over the following weeks, pressure mounted from multiple directions. The Colonial Defense Force insisted on conducting security assessments of the ship. Corporate interests demanded access to the technology for commercial development. Even friendly nations began questioning whether such powerful technology should remain under the informal control of an international research team. The ship's response to this pressure was both subtle and concerning. Systems that had been freely accessible to researchers began requiring more specific emotional states to operate. The warm, welcoming atmosphere that had characterized the ship began to cool. Most troubling of all, Maya began showing signs of stress that she had never displayed before. The ship is getting scared again, Maya confided to her mother one evening as they sat in the ship's garden chamber. It hears the angry people talking about taking it apart and making it do things it doesn't want to do. And it's starting to think maybe humans aren't ready to be friends with Weaver technology. Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental controls. What do you mean, not ready? Maya hugged Mr. Hopscotch closer. The ship can feel how the grown-ups think about it. Some of them want to use it to be more powerful than other people. Some of them are scared of it, and some of them just want to own it. She looked up at her mother with eyes that seemed older than her 8 years. But nobody except the scientists and the other kids really wants to play with it. And if people don't want to play, the ship can't help them reach the stars. The breaking point came when General Martinez attempted to board the ship with a team of military engineers, hoping to conduct what he called comprehensive technical analysis. Every system shut down. The lights dimmed to barely perceptible glows. The responsive walls became cold and unresponsive. Even the environmental controls reduced themselves to minimal life support levels. Maya collapsed the moment the military team set foot aboard the ship, not from any physical cause, but from what Dr. Kim could only describe as empathic overload. The ship's distress was literally making her sick. "Get 'em off," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Mommy, make them go away. The ship is crying and it hurts so much. General Martinez, you and your team need to leave immediately. The ship's systems are experiencing cascade failures that could endanger everyone aboard. We're here under direct orders from the United Earth Council." "Then your orders are going to get us all killed," Rodriguez interjected, his instruments showing energy fluctuations throughout the ship's crystalline matrix. "The ship's entire power grid is destabilizing. If this continues, we could be looking at a complete system collapse." It was Dr. Okafor who provided the insight that changed everything. "General, the ship isn't malfunctioning. It's experiencing grief. The Weaver technology is empathically linked to its primary operator, Maya, and your presence here represents everything the Weavers learned to fear. The militarization of cooperative technology. That's ridiculous. It's a machine." "No," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible but somehow carrying clearly through the chamber. "It's not a machine. It's the dreams and hopes and love of an entire species, all crystallized into something that could help other people learn to cooperate and explore and create together. And when you bring weapons and fear and want to control onto the ship, you're telling those dreams that they're not welcome. The general stared at the small girl who had somehow brought an alien starship to its knees through the simple act of emotional connection. This is intolerable. We cannot allow our species' future to depend on the whims of a child and her imaginary friendship with alien technology. Maya stood up, still shaky but with a determination that reminded Chen of her late husband during his most stubborn moments. It's not imaginary, and it's not just me anymore. Antoine from France, who had been the first to play with the ship's interactive walls. Keiko from Japan, who had spent weeks teaching the ship about origami and paper folding. Marcus from Nigeria, whose safari games had helped the ship understand human storytelling. They came with their parents, their teachers, and dozens of other children who had heard about the sad spaceship through the mysterious network of communication that seems to connect all children everywhere. They boarded the ship together, bringing with them toys and games and art supplies and musical instruments. As they spread throughout the corridors, playing and laughing and creating, the ship began to respond. Lights brightened, walls warmed, the crystalline formation started pulsing with renewed energy. General Martinez watched in disbelief as military-grade technology responded to finger painting and hopscotch games. This is chaos. There's no discipline, no control, no security protocols. There's something better, Dr. Vasquez replied, watching as a group of children from 6 different countries collaborated on reprogramming one of the ship's manufacturing systems through what appeared to be an elaborate game of charades. There's trust. The transformation was remarkable. As more children engaged with the ship's systems, adult researchers found themselves able to access capabilities that had been dormant for months. The ship created new learning environments that adapted to each user's interests and abilities. Most importantly, it began sharing more advanced knowledge about Weaver technology and philosophy. The ship is remembering how to trust humans, Maya explained to her mother as they watched a mixed group of children and scientists successfully test the ship's faster-than-light capabilities in a controlled simulation. It's learning that even though some grown-ups are scared or want to control everything, there are lots of humans who just want to learn and explore and make friends. Dr. Kim, who had been monitoring the ship's responses, made a crucial observation. Captain, I think we've been approaching this all wrong. We keep thinking of the ship as advanced technology that happens to respond to human emotions. But what if it's actually an emotional entity that happens to express itself through advanced technology? Chen considered this. What's the difference? A machine can be controlled, programmed, directed toward specific goals. But an emotional being, especially one that's been traumatized by the loss of its creators, needs to heal before it can fully trust again. These children aren't just operating the ship's systems. They're helping it overcome 10,000 years of grief and loneliness. The insight proved prophetic. Over the following weeks, as more children from around the world visited the ship and engaged with its systems, the vessel began displaying capabilities that surpassed even the researchers' most optimistic projections. It created educational programs that could teach complex scientific concepts through play. It developed manufacturing processes that could produce materials with properties that defied conventional physics. Most remarkably, it began generating what Dr. Vasquez termed empathy fields, areas where people found it easier to understand and cooperate with each other. But perhaps the most significant development was the ship's announcement, delivered through Maya, that it was ready to begin the next phase of human-Weaver cooperation. The ship wants to go home, Maya told the assembled researchers and officials. Not to leave us, but to take some of us with it. It wants to show the sleeping Weavers that humans can learn to play nicely together and maybe help wake them up. The proposal was staggering in its implications. The ship wanted to travel to the Weaver homeworld, taking with it a delegation of humans who had demonstrated genuine understanding of cooperative principles. If successful, they might be able to restore contact with the Weaver civilization and gain access to technologies that could solve humanity's greatest challenges. Maya smiled. Anyone who wants to, but especially kids, because kids are better at making friends with people who are different from them. General Martinez, who had been forced to observe these developments from outside the ship, made one final attempt to assert military control. We cannot risk human lives on an interstellar journey based on the fantasies of children. Maya looked at him with the patience of someone far older than her years. It's not a fantasy, General. It's a chance to prove that humans are ready to join a galaxy-wide community based on cooperation instead of competition. The Weavers left their ship here as a test. If we can pass the test, we get to meet them. If we can't, she didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood the implication. Humanity would remain isolated, struggling with problems that had already been solved by civilizations that had learned to work together. The debate that followed would shape the future of human civilization. But aboard the Weaver ship, surrounded by the laughter of children and the wondering discussions of scientists, Maya continued to play her games with alien technology that had learned to love humanity through the simple act of a little girl sharing her toys. The ship hummed quietly around them, its crystalline heart pulsing with dreams of reunion and the hope that its new human friends would prove worthy of the gift the Weavers had left among the stars. The decision to journey to the Weaver homeworld came from an unexpected source. After weeks of debate among world leaders, scientists, and military officials, Maya and the other young people who had bonded with the ship held their own council. They met in the ship's largest chamber, sitting in a circle that included 37 children from 23 different countries, along with their favorite toys, art supplies, and musical instruments. "We want to go," announced Keiko, who at 12 had become something of a spokesperson for the group. "The ship has shown us the star maps, and we've learned enough about Weaver technology to help with the journey. But we want the grown-ups to come too," added Antoine, holding up a drawing he had made of humans and Weavers working together. Not the scary ones who want to make weapons, but the nice ones who like learning new things. Maya nodded solemnly. "The ship says it can take about 200 people safely. It wants scientists and teachers and artists and engineers and doctors," and she paused, listening to something only she could hear. "And at least 50 kids, because kids are how the Weavers will know that humans care about the future." As the senior officer who had discovered the ship, she had been offered command of the expedition, but accepting meant taking her 8-year-old daughter on a journey to another star system, with no guarantee of safe return. "Mommy," Maya said during one of their private conversations, "you're scared about something bad happening to me, but staying here is scarier for me than going to meet the Weavers." "Why, sweetheart? Because if we don't go, the ship will eventually get too sad to keep trying. And then humans will never learn how to cooperate well enough to solve our really big problems." The Weavers didn't just leave us faster than light technology, they left us a way to become better people. Doctor Kim, who had been monitoring the psychological effects of extended exposure to the ship, provided additional perspective. "Captain, the children who have spent the most time aboard the ship are showing remarkable development in areas of empathy, creative problem-solving, and collaborative thinking. Maya, in particular, has demonstrated cognitive abilities that are off the charts. I think the ship isn't just teaching them, it's helping them access human potential we didn't know existed. The expedition crew was assembled through a process unlike anything in human history. Instead of military selection criteria or political appointments, candidates were chosen based on their ability to work cooperatively with the ship's systems. The selection process involves spending time aboard the vessel and demonstrating genuine curiosity, empathy, and willingness to learn through play. Dr. Vasquez was chosen to lead the scientific team. Professor Okafor would serve as Chief Cultural Liaison. Rodriguez signed on as Chief Engineer, fascinated by the opportunity to learn Weaver technology from its source. Dr. Kim volunteered as Medical Officer and Child Development Specialist. Dozens of other researchers, educators, and specialists earned their places by proving they could approach the unknown with wonder rather than fear. But the most important crew members were the children. Maya, of course, would serve as primary interface with the ship. Keiko became assistant navigator, her origami skills having taught her to visualize complex spatial relationships. Antoine was designated as cultural ambassador, his natural friendliness making him popular with both humans and the ship's AI systems. Marcus became entertainment coordinator, responsible for maintaining crew morale through games and storytelling. The preparation phase lasted 6 months. The ship worked with human engineers to create living spaces that could accommodate 200 people for an extended journey. The results were unlike anything in human spacecraft design. Organic-looking chambers that adapted to their occupants' needs, recreational areas that could reconfigure themselves based on the crew's interests, and learning spaces where the ship's educational systems could share Weaver knowledge. Most remarkably, the ship began growing, not expanding its existing structure, but literally adding new sections as it anticipated the needs of its passengers. It created workshops where human engineers could learn Weaver manufacturing techniques, laboratories where scientists could study xenobiology, and vast play areas where children could explore their creativity without limits. "It's not just preparing for the journey," Rodriguez observed as he watched new corridors crystallize into existence. "It's preparing to become a permanent bridge between human and Weaver civilization." The departure ceremony took place at dawn, with representatives from every nation on Earth gathered at New Geneva. The ship had configured itself into its most impressive form, its crystalline hull reflecting the sunrise in patterns that seemed to tell stories of hope and adventure. Maya stood at the ship's primary interface, her hand resting on the central control crystal. Around her, the expedition crew took their positions, not at rigid duty stations, but in comfortable areas where they could work and play and learn together during the long journey ahead. "Are you ready?" Chen asked her daughter. Maya smiled, clutching Mr. Hopscotch in her free hand. "The ship is excited. It says this is the first time in 10,000 years that it's had real friends to share the journey with." The departure was unlike any human space launch in history. Instead of violent acceleration and the roar of chemical rockets, the ship simply began to fade from normal space. It didn't disappear all at once, but gradually became translucent, as if it were becoming more idea than matter. "Faster than light isn't about speed," Maya explained to the fascinated crew as Earth dwindled behind them. "It's about believing so strongly in where you want to go that space-time agrees to help you get there faster." The journey to the Weaver homeworld took 3 weeks of subjective time, though the ship's instruments suggested they had traveled nearly 30,000 light-years. During that time, the ship served as a university, playground, and cultural exchange all in one. Human crew members learned to operate Weaver technology through games that seemed deceptively simple but required unprecedented levels of cooperation and creativity. More importantly, they learned about the Weavers themselves through the ship's vast memory banks. The ancient civilization had indeed created a galaxy-spanning network of worlds dedicated to cooperation, creativity, and mutual understanding. They had solved problems of poverty, war, and environmental destruction not through technology alone, but by fostering cultures where competition was replaced by collaboration. "They weren't perfect," Professor Okafor noted as he studied records of Weaver society. "They had conflicts and disagreements like any civilization, but they developed ways of resolving those conflicts that strengthened rather than divided their communities." "How?" Chen asked. Maya answered before the professor could respond. "They played games where everybody won. Not where everybody got the same thing, but where everybody got what they needed to be happy and contribute to making life better for everyone." The Weaver homeworld, when they finally reached it, was both magnificent and heartbreaking. Vast cities of crystalline spires stretched across continents, but they stood empty, their lights dim to barely perceptible glows. The planet still supported life, vast gardens and forests flourished between the cities, but there was no sign of the beings who had built this paradise. "They're here," Maya announced as the ship entered orbit, "but they're sleeping so deeply that they can barely remember how to dream." Deep beneath the planet's surface, vast crystalline formations similar to the ship's engine pulsed with the faintest traces of energy. The sleeping Weavers had become one with their technology, maintaining themselves in stasis while they waited for something. For proof that the galaxy was ready for their gift, Maya explained, They went to sleep because they were afraid that if they stayed awake, they might accidentally teach cooperation to species that weren't ready for it, species that might use Weaver technology to become better conquerors instead of better friends. The landing party that descended to the planet's surface included Maya and 5 other children, along with a dozen adult specialists. They were met by the planet's automated systems, which had been maintaining the sleeping civilization for millennia. The awakening process was neither dramatic nor immediate. It began with Maya and the other children playing their games in the crystalline halls of the empty cities. Simple games at first, hopscotch, tag, hide-and-seek, but played with the joy and wonder that only children could bring to any activity. Slowly, the lights in the crystal formations began to brighten. Patterns of energy that had been dormant for thousands of years started pulsing with renewed life. And eventually, in the deepest chambers beneath the largest city, the first weavers began to stir from their long sleep. They emerged as beings of living light and crystal, beautiful and alien but unmistakably benevolent. Their first contact with humanity came through Maya, who approached the ancient beings with the same fearless curiosity she had shown when first boarding their ship. "Hello," she said, holding up Mr. Hopscotch. "We're humans, and we've been learning to play your games. Would you like to play with us?" The Weaver's response was a harmony of light and sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of joy, of relief, of 10,000 years of loneliness finally coming to an end. Over the days that followed, the Weavers shared their knowledge freely with their human visitors. They taught advanced technologies that could solve every material need. They revealed methods of communication that transcended language barriers. Most importantly, they demonstrated how civilizations could be structured around cooperation, creativity, and mutual care. But their greatest gift was the simplest. They played with the human children, learning from them even as they taught. The games they created together were unlike anything either species had imagined alone. Activities that blended human imagination with Weaver wisdom to create entirely new forms of art, science, and exploration. "We have been waiting for someone like you." The eldest of the awakened Weavers communicated to Maya through patterns of light that somehow conveyed meaning directly to her mind. Young beings who could look at our gift and see not a tool to be used, but a friend to be cherished. The return journey to Earth took place 6 months later, but they didn't return alone. A delegation of Weavers accompanied them, eager to see the world that had produced such remarkable young ambassadors. More importantly, they brought with them the coordinates of dozens of other Weaver worlds, each one waiting to welcome species that had proven their commitment to cooperation. The ship that entered Earth's solar system was transformed. What had once been a single vessel was now a small fleet of interconnected craft, each one a hybrid of human ingenuity and Weaver wisdom. The technology they brought back would indeed solve humanity's greatest challenges, but only for those communities willing to embrace the cooperative principles that made such technology possible. Maya, now 9 years old and serving as humanity's first Weaver ambassador, stood once again in the ship's central chamber as Earth grew large in the viewports. Mr. Hopscotch sat in his place of honor beside the central control crystal, no longer just a stuffed rabbit, but a symbol of how the smallest acts of imagination and play could reshape the universe itself. "What happens now?" Chen asked her daughter. Maya smiled, her eyes reflecting the warm light of the Weaver crystals around them. "Now we teach everyone else how to play. And then we explore the galaxy together, making friends and solving problems and turning the whole universe into the biggest playground anyone ever imagined." Behind them, human children and young Weavers played games that had never existed before, creating new possibilities with every laugh, every moment of shared wonder, every act of joyful cooperation. The silent engine that had waited 10 millennia for someone to remember how to play was silent no longer, humming with the power of imagination made manifest and dreams given form among the stars. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic friendship had begun. And it all started with a little girl, a stuffed rabbit, and the revolutionary idea that the most powerful force in the universe might just be the simple act of playing nicely together.